Okay, I'm opening night 2 of the annual Arlington Town Meeting. Anyone who missed the legally ambiguous swearing in on Monday can find the town clerk, Ms. Brazil, during the break to get sworn in. Speaking of the break, welcome to snack night at town meeting. Snacks will be available for sale during the break. If you didn't have a chance before the meeting, I will not be managing the order of the snack queue. You're on your own. Scheduling note, the town budgets and the capital budgets, with the meeting's permission, of course, will be taken up next Wednesday, May 7th, and the appropriation for the Minuteman School budget will be the following Monday, May 12th. If you look at the town meeting progress tracker, you'll see in the date, if you see a date in the future, that means that's a scheduled date. Of course, that requires the consent of the meeting to allow articles to be laid on the table and removed from the table in order to actually implement that, but the expectation is that you're probably going to be amenable to that. Because on those nights we have to get certain speakers to be here to make presentations or to answer questions, like in the case of town budgets night, where we have a lot of the department directors present to be able to answer all your questions. Okay, reminder about deadlines for presentations and motions and budgeting time for revisions to make them acceptable at the meeting. Motions to be announced, motions that I accept in advance need to be announced to the town meeting member email list by around 5 p.m. Sometimes we get a little bit delayed, but we try to get those out by around 5 p.m. the business day before the meeting that those motions are expected to come up. It's much better if you can get them in further in advance. Obviously, if you send it to us, like to me and the town clerk and town council at 4:50 p.m. on the business day before the meeting, I'm not going to have time to review it, so you have to work backwards from there. And the intention here is to give the other 251 town meeting members an opportunity to have time to actually look at the motions that you're submitting. So you have to work your time backwards, make sure you're budgeting enough time. I try to respond to these requests within, by the next business day. And so if it requires multiple iterations of changes, then that's going to take multiple days. So please budget your time accordingly when you want to submit motions in advance. And there's other options as well that you can read in detail in the town meeting guidelines, which is linked off of the town meeting page. And let's see. And also, speaking of the town meeting guidelines, since it was published an update was published last month, a clarification about 2 sections. One is a new section, presentation of subsidiary motions, which should clarify the expectation around the presentation of amendments and substitute motions. This came up at last year's town meeting, and hopefully this makes it more clear for everyone so we're all on the same page about what should be presented there. And also an updated section, resolution articles, which already existed, but there's similar language in there about what's appropriate to present when offering an amendment or a substitute motion under a resolution article. And the summary of that, I won't get too much into the details here, but the summary is when presenting an amendment or substitute motion, you need to keep your remarks limited to your motion and its direct relation to the motion that it's modifying. If you want to make more extensive remarks unrelated to your motion, but you want to speak to, say, the main motion and the merits of it or the issues that you have with it, you can request additional speaking time via the speaker queue. And you'll be allowed 5 minutes for your second appearance on that article or subject as specified in the town bylaws. Lastly, I want to address the large number of corrections in the reports and the vote language that we've been seeing over the last few days. I'm told that the process for merging drafts and revisions was slightly different this year, and it appears that that process has increased the likelihood of these sorts of errors. That process is being looked at, and I'm confident that it will be improved for future town meetings. On behalf of the town, I apologize for the confusion that these errors may have created, and I appreciate your forbearance in working through them with us. So thank you. And without further ado, we have some guests tonight who will be performing the national anthem, vocalists, accompanied by the piano. So please rise. And let's join in the national anthem. Thank you. Great, thank you. And those are the vocalists we just had were Rohan Pingle and Miles Rosenberg on vocals and Ryoko Tanaka on piano accompanying. Thank you so much. Okay, and I believe we have a motion coming from Ms. Mahan.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It is moved that if all the business of the meeting is set forth in the warrant for the annual town meeting is not disposed of at this session, when the meeting adjourns, it adjourns to Monday, May 5th, 2025 at 8 p.m.
Okay, we have a second that if we don't finish tonight, and we will not finish tonight, we will reconvene on Monday, May 5th. All those in favor say yes. Yes. All those opposed say no. It is unanimous. Did someone say no? Okay, it's an affirmative vote. Okay, we'll now take up the test question. Okay, and the question is, true or false, the term e pluribus unum originated with Marcus Tullius Cicero of the Roman Republic. He was a Senate named, referred to him as Cicero from the late Roman Republic. True or false? One for true, two for false. Okay, voting is closed. And the motion fails. And that is correct. Cicero was not the originator. He did use it in public discourse. He's probably the first one to popularize it in a political setting. But it was actually Publius Vergilius Maro, known as Virgil, the poet. Okay, so we'll just go through the screen so everyone can check. It took 5 years of Latin. I got to use it for something. Okay, very good. I now call for announcements and resolutions. Seeing none, We'll now move to reports to be received. Are there any reports to be received tonight? I see one waiting in the wings. In that case, Ms. Deschler.
Christine Deschler, Chair of the Finance Committee. I move that Article 3 be taken from the table.
Okay, we have a second to remove Article 3 from the table so we could receive reports. We have a second. All those in favor say yes. All those opposed say no. It is unanimous. We are now have Article 3 before us, and I believe we have some Ms. Kelleher in the wings.
Good evening. My name is Karen Kelleher. I'm a resident of the town, and I am the chair of the Arlington Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I'm here tonight to present to you the report of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It looks like this. It's in the back of the hall. It's also on the town meeting website, and I believe it was emailed to all of you. I hate to do this, but I want to beg your indulgence and ask if the meeting might afford me 8 minutes to talk about our work and what we're doing to make affordable housing available.
Sorry, just one second. I think you had a motion to receive the report. Do we have a second? Okay, all those in favor of receiving the report of which, I'm sorry, the
Arlington Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee. All those in favor of receiving the report say yes. Yes. All those opposed say no. It is unanimous. Ms. Kelleher, go ahead.
Mr. Moderator, may I ask the meeting's approval to use 8 minutes?
You would like additional time for a total of 8 minutes?
I'd like to make that request if possible.
Yes. So we have a request for an additional 4 minutes on top of the allotted 4 in the bylaws. With permission of the meeting, we can extend that to a total of 8 minutes. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. All those in favor of adding another 4 minutes for a total of 8 minutes for the presentation, say yes. Yes. All those opposed say no. It is a majority vote, so you have 8 minutes.
Thank you so much. If you could please reset the clock. I'm going to jump right into it. If we could have the next slide. There are some slides that may be showing up, but I'm going to get going. If the slides catch up with me, great, but I don't want to waste your time. I'll start with the headlines. The trust fund has a 5-year action plan, and we're 2 years into it. We were formed by this body for the purpose of creating and preserving affordable housing in the town of Arlington, and we are 2 years into that action plan. I'm pleased to say we've deployed $3.5 million together with the town manager, the CPA committee, and many other bodies. And in those 2 years, we have supported the creation of 70 units of affordable housing. That represents a substantial increase in the amount of affordable housing being created in this town. When we did our action plan, we calculated the average affordable housing production. Before that point, it was an average of 6 units per year. This pace is 35 units per year. So that's a substantial increase. Thank you. If we can sustain and grow that, we have a chance of responding to the mandate that this body gave us to try to create meaningful solutions to the affordable housing crisis our residents face. There's a few other highlights that I want to hit on. We're getting a ton of leverage for our local dollars. For every $1 of local funds going into those 70 affordable housing units, $72 of other money has been raised. So that's extraordinary leverage. That doesn't even include in the calculations 16 units of affordable housing that were created with absolutely no local dollars at completely no cost to the town. We are pretty proud of those results. We also have some housing affordability targeting requirements to make sure that the housing being created is serving the needs of those with the greatest needs. We are knocking those out of the park. The details are in the report. Everything I'm going to speak to tonight is in the report and in greater detail. I'd like to talk a little bit about the projects, if you could, that's the actual report on the screen. The first project I want to talk about is 10 Sunnyside Lane. This is being developed by the Housing Corporation of Arlington. It's 43 units of rental housing. There are pictures of these projects in the report if they're not on the screen. Of those, 18 units are reserved for people who are extremely low income or very low income, and 4 for formerly homeless families. It will start construction this summer, and it'll be affordable for 30 years. It's passive house, it's net zero, and the total development costs are $32.8 million. The trust fund provided initially $250,000 for this project. They recently came back to us and said, we're getting ready to close, we have a gap. We went to the state for more money. They said, okay, but the town needs to put more in too. We were able last week to approve an additional $200,000, sort of demonstrating one of the reasons to have a trust, to be able to act quickly and have some funds in reserve for these kinds of opportunities. As a result of that, they'll be able to leverage those additional funds and move forward to construction. Also from HCA, we funded with the town manager 35 Parker Street, used to be Dorothy Road, it was referred to. This is a modular, affordable, net zero, passive house accessory dwelling unit, which HCA installed on a property it already owned in East Arlington. We approved a $260,000 grant to make this happen, realizing our mutual hope that we could use our ADU bylaw to create affordable housing. We ultimately asked the town manager to fund that with federal ARPA funds that were available. Those funds needed to be expended, committed by the end of 2024, and we wanted to make sure they got used. So he approved that, and this was ultimately funded with ARPA funds. But we did deploy the rest of those ARPA funds with the town manager. There were nearly $3 million of ARPA funds reserved for new housing creation. We put together a program with the town manager, thinking these funds, because they were short, they had a short timeline, would be appropriate for converting existing buildings, since the development timeline is so long. That was called the Acquisition, Creation, and Conversion Program, the ACC program. We funded 3 projects. We kept a 2-family in East Arlington affordable. A small developer proposed a $500,000 grant. He bought that building for $1.3 million. It's now 2 affordable units, keeping 2 families affordable in our community. We also funded a developer who's building a 9-unit market rate building on Broadway, to include an additional affordable housing unit. That 9-unit building was required to create 1 affordable unit under our inclusionary zoning. For $200,000, we were able to cause them to deed restrict another unit to be affordable for 30 years. Those are small projects, but the third one we funded through the ARPA ACC program with the town manager is a Housing Corporation of Arlington acquisition of 2 buildings consisting of 57 units, where tenants have been suffering rent increases and being displaced and had been seeking a more stable solution for that property. HCA had tried to buy it previously. We did outreach for this program. The owner responded and said, I am interested in subsidizing some of the units here. In fact, I'll sell this property to HCA. HCA stepped up, negotiated a purchase and sale agreement with the town manager and trust funds. We put $2 million together for this purchase. They are now raising the additional $20 million that they need to purchase this building. 8 units will initially be deed restricted, but this property will now be in their hands and will become more affordable over time as they have the opportunity to do so. The total funds we've been provided of local funds are $790,000, not quite enough to buy a home in Arlington, quite honestly. Those funds came from $170,000 of unrestricted funds and 2 awards from the CPA committee, which has been our largest funder and our biggest partner. We have expended all of those except for $29,000 we've retained for administrative costs. The federal funds we deployed with the town manager were $2.81 million. Those have all been deployed to get the results that we mentioned. The most important takeaway probably from this point is that this is a team sport. None of what I've just described are we the primary leader of that work. We are merely a supporting player, and it requires the HCA, the Housing Authority, the Art Redevelopment Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, all of you, town meeting, the developers and realtors who came to the table when we put out the RFP, Department of Planning and Community Development, the Select Board, the town manager obviously has been a great partner, the CPA committee who I mentioned, and the residents. There is Article 14 before you, which was approved originally in 2021 by town meeting to provide a sustainable funding source to be able to continue this level of production and preservation of affordable housing in town. I hope you'll vote to continue the opportunity to have a conversation locally about using a real estate transfer fee to fund the work of the trust. I thank you very much for your time and welcome your input and your questions about our work.
Thank you, Ms. Kelleher. Do we have any other reports of committees to be received? Oh, okay. Is Dr. Yeah. Or is it Dr. O? I forget.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sue Doctorow, Precinct 21, and co-chair of the Community Preservation Act Committee. I move that the report of the Community Preservation Act Committee, as published on the town website and as corrected in the memo, corrections to printed reports, be received.
Okay, we have a second to receive the report. All those in favor say yes. Yes. All those opposed say no. It is unanimous. It is received.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Christopher Moore, Precinct 14 and Chair of the Capital Planning Committee. I move that the report of the Capital Planning Committee as published on the town website be received.
Okay, we have a motion and with a second to receive the report of the Capital Planning Committee. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. It is unanimous.
And may I say a few words about the report?
Yes, you have 3 minutes and 46 seconds.
Please read it.
I feel like we've been taken advantage of. Any other reports of committees? Seeing none. Ms. Deschler?
Christine Deschler, Chair of the Arlington Finance Committee. I move that Article 3 be laid upon the table.
Okay, we have a second to lay Article 3 upon the table. It's a 2/3 vote. We'll take it by voice. All those in favor say yes. Yes. All those opposed say no. It is unanimous. Okay, we now resume Article 11 tonight. And because we had an amendment that was offered and announced the evening of the business day before the meeting from Mr. Bean, we're going to start there. And I hope we still have the speaker queue from Monday for Article 11. I do have a picture of it in case, but okay, good. I see it right here on my extra display. So, Mr. Bean, did you want to offer your, and just to clarify, this doesn't often happen because usually we allow motions to be made ahead of debate. That's kind of the custom at Arlington Town Meeting. But because this article is split across multiple nights, there's actually a second opportunity now. Hopefully there's not a third opportunity if we speak all night about this. Mr. Bean?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. David Bean, Precinct 8. While reading the report of the Select Board, I came across another one of the little glitches that have been discussed, and that is that in the recommended vote, a new term was defined for this bylaw, property owner, yet in the description of the process to be followed, the older term or another term, homeowner, was used. My motion is to change the term homeowner to property owner in paragraphs 4A and 4F.
Okay, we had a motion and I didn't hear a second. Do we have a second? Okay, so Mr. Bean's amendment is now before us as well as the main motion from the Select Board. Okay, so now going to the speaker queue. Next up is Mr. Ruderman. What's that? Oh, did we already get through some of these speakers? Did Mr. Greenspan speak? Mr. Greenspan, okay. And then we'll take Mr. Christopher Moore after that.
Andy, does this work? Andy Greenspan, Precinct 5. I have a quick question from the commissioners when they spoke on Monday. Is there any current actual legal process to remove something from the historical inventory?
Let's see, are they here? I can't see past this
Or
mark.
does anyone know?
We have someone who can answer that question back there? Okay. I'll pause the timer as we wait. Unless, Mr. Greenspan, you want to speak to anything else?
I do.
But do you want to wait until after?
Yeah, okay. That's all right.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just during, I thought there was an implication that one of them said maybe there was a way, so I'm just clarifying that.
Pamela Meister, Precinct 2, and also a commissioner with the Arlington Historical Commission. My My understanding is there is a process. I am not familiar with it, however, but my understanding is there is a legal process to do it. It has rarely been used, but it was used years ago.
Is it written down in any documentation or bylaw?
No.
Okay.
I think
so,
town
okay.
council might be able to add information as well, Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Cunningham, Town Council. There is no written process contained in the bylaw for the exclusion of properties.
Okay, thank you. So I'm presuming then that there is currently no way effectively in law. So, very quickly. So I just view this measure as fairness and general respect for a base level of private property rights. I'm actually surprised there wasn't a way to remove homes from the inventory just to rectify potential errors. In the current bylaw, even if the Historical Commission stated publicly that there was a mistake or an error, there's no method to rectify that error right now. This bylaw amendment is written thoroughly, has the support of the Historical Commission, so we should vote in favor. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Mr. Moore? Pass. Mr. Lewicki? Mr. Cook? And then Mr. Fleming.
Hi, Grant Cook, I'm Precinct 16. And I have the benefit of both participating in this process many years ago and actually watching many of the committee hearings, which are pretty interesting to look at. They're done through Zoom. Just in the light of this, I think it's important to understand the burden of a homeowner being on this list, and also the burden on the committee. It's a lot of work. These houses are scattered over town. I'm not sure some of you might be in homes that are on this list. A lot of your neighbors probably are, and I think it's beneficial to understand what they go through. This isn't about just demolitions. Almost any exterior work on a house will trigger this. I think it's 25% of any street-facing face. So windows, replacing siding, putting on an expansion, anything will trigger this hearing. The hearing might take a month. It might take several months if you have to go through numerous design iterations. The committee explicitly has stated, at least in what I've heard, that financial burden on the homeowner is not considered in the deliberations. So this might mean thousands or tens of thousands of dollars onto the homeowner. And on top of that, in the deliberations I've watched, the express intent of the commission is not just preservation, maintaining what is out there today, preserving what can be preserved, but actually restoring the house back to its original condition. And I bring up the example of 17 Norcross, which is a triple-decker in East Arlington. It's a nice triple-decker. I've seen prettier ones. I've seen less pretty ones. There's no lack of triple-deckers in this metro region of ours. If you drive to any neighboring town, we don't have very many because we didn't let very many get built. But this homeowner came and asked about replacing the vinyl siding. And the statement at the time was, well, we'd like you to go back to the siding of the original home, which was asbestos shingle. I assume it would be something not asbestos, but I assume it would be not asbestos, but not the vinyl on there today. The homeowner, I don't know, I haven't spoken to them, but they withdrew, faced with this burden of a restoration of the siding versus just keeping the existing vinyl the way it is and making it new and keeping the houses at a decent level of repair. There is no appeal of the commission's decision. What they decide is what they decide, and the only option for the homeowner is to wait a year. Most of the time, in my experience, the homeowner might find out about this, not most of the time, the homeowner might find out about this when they pull the permits. So they might have gone through several months of planning, go pull the permits for the work, and find out, no, your house is on this list, and you have to go through this process. So we don't do a very good job of outreach. I think it's part of the resources of the committee aren't there. So it's a pretty high burden, and this all falls on the homeowner to support. Now, the negotiations are congenial. I've never seen an argument or a debate, but it's pretty clear where the balance of power sits. This is sort of like you're a young couple and your parents are paying for the wedding, and they go, hey, I'd like to invite my 20 friends from the club. It's clear you're going to say yes to that. The balance of power clearly falls on what the committee wants. It's not a horrible negotiation, but it's clearly a negotiation where it's what they want or you have to wait. And for the committee, it's a lot of work. They have to put a monitor on these projects. There's 850 or so homes, not counting the districts. The 7 districts are their own animal. This is 850 or so homes with properties, and some of them are multifamily, so it's probably about 1,000 homes in town. And if you're going to put a homeowner through this burden, you think if they ask, why is my home on the list, we should be able to at least give them a 2 or 3 sentence explanation. When I look in Macris, the online tool that lists the historic provenance of these properties, it's online, you can look at it. Often you just see one word, architecture, historical significance, architecture. I mean, these are homeowners, these are people's homes, and I think they should have dominion over them and be able to, in some way, take them the way they want to live in them and be able to improve them and change them. And if we're going to put this burden on them to hold them back, to freeze them in time, we should have a really good reason for doing that. And I think this process calls that reason to account. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Fleming? And then after Mr. Fleming, we'll take Mr. Bagnall.
James Fleming, Precinct 4. I'm happy to see that the Historical Commission is taking ownership of past mistakes and taking at least a first step to rectify it. This might be short. It sounds like there are no commissioners here tonight.
We just had one.
Sorry.
Spoke.
Sorry. I would be sorry to make you get up and answer a bunch of questions. One of the pieces of the proposal is that one of the things you would look at is whether the building was added to the inventory in error. And one thing I was wondering, to Grant's point, is if there's nothing written or a vague word like architecture, what would you use to determine that this building is still a significant building and should stay on the list or not?
Is that a question you want to pose to one of the commissioners?
That's a question.
Yeah, I think I heard that there were 2 commissioners present.
Pamela Meister, Precinct 2, and member of the Arlington Historical Commission. There are different commissioners who have different levels of expertise. And what we do is we look through records about the property. Some of the Form Bs, which are the ones that were submitted to the Mass Historical Commission, really had very little in them, and yet in fact, most of those properties would be seen as historic by anybody, pretty much, as well as by the Mass Historical Commission. So we do look to the expertise within the commission, as well as what we are aware of about the property and what Mass Historical Commission, as well as others, have told us about the property.
Does that mean that aside from the statement of why it's on the list, there are additional documentation that describes, who lived in the house or things like that?
Yes, there can be.
Okay. And so you would basically apply whatever your commission's judgment is as to whether or not that's sufficient to be considered significant?
Yes, I think that is fair. In fact, what has happened is the buildings that are on the list were approved by the Mass Historical Commission after experts had them filled out forms and had them put on the list. The problem that we encounter now is I don't think any of us were on the commission at the time many of those studies happened. And so we do go back and take a look and see what there is.
Sorry, tell me if I heard this right. It sounds like the past commissioners made a judgment based on what they knew from the historical record, but now the current incarnation of the commission, thinking back to the errors that were mentioned, if it's an error, does that mean that the commission's judgment has changed or new facts have been uncovered, or is it just sort of like the people are different and they view it as more or less historic?
Well, I think most things get more historic over time anyway, but, so I mean, that possibly factors in. But these are buildings that had been approved, and some have changed over time. As I said the other night, there have been times where somebody perhaps made a change without going to the building department, or the building department did not notify us. And there are times when the building has lost its historic significance. If that has happened, what we have always done is said, no, this building should not be preferentially preserved. What this article does is it gives us another mechanism for getting the property off the list when in fact the property has lost its historic significance.
So it sounds like then you would only remove a property if something materially has changed about the property to make it less historic?
It's not just historic, it's also architecturally significant, or it can be that in very rare instances, we cannot find a reason that it was ever or should have been on the list.
But if it's on the list, wouldn't that mean that one of the past commissioners had decided that it was significant architecturally or historically?
No, it means that Mass Historical Commission decided that it was something that met its criteria for architecturally or historically significant.
Can we remove a property put on the list by MHC?
We don't, MHC, not I, but another commissioner contacted them. They have not been aware of people removing things from their list. In speaking to a former commissioner who had done this before, and that is Richard Duffy, he said, yes, in fact, he has removed things from the list before. And so, yes, there is a way we can do it. I'm not the one who knows the answer to how.
Okay. My last question is, at the removal hearing that would happen, is the public allowed to provide input?
Yes.
But isn't it supposed to be made on a determination of historical significance or architectural significance?
Well, but the public has a right to, in other words, if you're asking whether, some person says, I don't think it's historic, we will listen to them, but we will make our determination.
I was thinking more in the case of where someone says, I like this building, I think it should be kept. Is the commission allowed to take that input as part of its finding?
We look to...
Mr. Cunningham might have an answer to that from a legal perspective. Mr. Cunningham? And we have under a minute left, so it'd be quick.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Cunningham, Town Council. If this main motion is adopted, the process that would be created is a public hearing, so the public would have the opportunity to attend and offer testimony in support or against the proposal by the homeowner or property owner.
Thank you. No more questions, thank you. My concern is that this process is probably better than nothing because at least it creates a mechanism, but my concern is that this just becomes a discretionary hearing where the public can say, they like this building, therefore we keep it, and it sways the commission one way or another. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll take Mr. Bagnall next, then Pipe Fisher. And I'll just point out while Mr. Bagnall comes up that mentioned historic passage of time, and I just want to remind everyone that time is just a statistical illusion of thermodynamics. Mr. Bagnall?
Alex Bagnall, Precinct 9. I move the question.
Okay, we have a motion to terminate debate, and we have a second. So it's a 2/3 vote. We'll take it by voice. All those in favor of terminating debate on all matters under Article 11 say yes. Yes. All those opposed say no. It is unanimous. Oh. So debate is terminated. So we'll first take a vote on the Bean Amendment. And while we're bringing that up, the Bean Amendment seeks to amend the main motion to change the term homeowner to property owner, which is defined elsewhere in the main motion. Okay, so voting is now open. If you're in support of amending the main motion to change that term to property owner, vote 1 for yes. And if you want to reject that, press 2 for no, and 3 to abstain. Okay, voting is closing, and it's closed. And the amendment passes 204 in the affirmative, 5 in the negative, 1 abstention. So the main motion is now amended with the Bean Amendment. So we'll now take up a vote on the main motion to amend Title 6, Article 6 of the town bylaws to create a process for homeowners to remove their home from the town's historic structures inventory with the Bean amendment applied to it. Okay, voting is open. If you're in favor of the main motion as amended by the Bean amendment, press 1 for yes. If you wish to reject the main motion to leave the town bylaws as is, then press 2 for no, or 3 to abstain. Okay, 5 seconds. Okay, let's close voting. And the motion passes 208 in the affirmative, 6 in the negative, 2 abstentions. Okay, that takes us to Article 12. Let's see. And so, Ms. Mahan, you want to lead us off?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The board voted unanimously for this, talking about openings on committees, commissions, and boards. Right now on the town website, there's approximately 17 different boards, commissions, committees. Of those 17, 12 are seeking 2, 3, 4 plus members each. So I'm not going to do the math for you all. The proponent, Joshua Solomon, came and presented some options regarding resident and voter status, as well as age of residents who can volunteer for these openings. And I would leave it to Mr. Solomon to present what he presented to the board. Thank you.
Okay, and so as we bring Mr. Solomon up, let's show the speaker queue and clear it so everyone knows we started from a clean slate. So if you can press 1 to enter the request to speak. And Mr. Solomon has the floor. Let's see, Mr. Solomon, are you a town meeting member?
I am a town meeting
Okay,
member.
then you have the right to speak.
And do I had slides, I'm not sure if they...
Are they there? Yep. Is that it?
Perfect.
Okay, do we skip the title slide or? There we go.
Thanks so much, Mr. Moderator. So this bylaw is around expanding committee eligibility.
Oh, name and precinct, please.
Oh, sorry. Mic's
is
not
the-
working?
Either the mic's
Is
not
that
working.
better?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Josh Solomon, town meeting member, precinct 6. So this article is around expanding committee eligibility in the town. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the proposed bylaw is to revise the eligibility for town committees to extend to residents in the town. The language here is regardless of age, but the motion, as you'll see, and the recommendation from the board includes the age of majority as part. Next slide, please. So currently, as mentioned, there are a number of committees in town that do not require registered voter status, but the majority do. So some of the newer committees, such as the Human Rights Commission and the Civilian Police Advisory Commission, do not just require residency as opposed to registered voter status. Next slide. These are a number of the committees, for example, that you've heard of, that you've seen reports from: Zero Waste Arlington Committee, the Capital Planning Committee, that do require registered voter status. Next slide. Another thing to note is that even if we do extend eligibility on town committees, most town committees have a lot of oversight in terms of who can be appointed to those specific committees. So I'll give an example of that on the next slide. So the Capital Planning Committee, for example, membership consists of a number of officials in the town and between 4 and 6 registered voters appointed by the moderator. So there's a high level of oversight even if we expand eligibility for our committees. Next slide. Why do we use registered voter in the first place? Registered voter is a very convenient way to have eligibility be selected because it's run by the government. We know someone is living in the town. We also know they are a U.S. citizen. So I think that is one reason why historically Arlington and many towns have used this. Next slide. However, who is excluded when we consider just registered voters? This would include legal permanent residents of the town. It would include anyone here on a student or work visa. It would include anyone who had asylee or refugee status.
and it would include and it would exclude undocumented individuals. Next slide. Obviously, there's a fair amount of attention around issues of immigration in the country right now. I think putting that aside for the moment, this is an opportunity for Arlington to really value the contributions of all of the residents of our town. And anyone who lives in the town, who's made this their home, who wants to contribute to its operation and its future, would have a choice to do so if we extended eligibility in this way. And as I noted before, there is still a high level of oversight by many town officials over who will be selected for individual committees. Next slide. Age considerations. So the original proposal had included extending this to all ages. This was kind of thinking back to the amendment we had last year around extending local voting eligibility to 16 and 17-year-olds, which we did pass, though it still requires home rule to authorize it. Town council did raise a number of important considerations around individual committee memberships and legal or liability issues that could come up there with any individuals serving on those commissions who are below the age of majority. Given this, there's still mechanisms where committees can name in their individual bylaws that they are open to members who are below the age of majority. Next slide. Given this, I think this article is a meaningful step forward to really expand eligibility to our committees, commissions, and boards, to really value the contributions of the residents of our town. If we want to further consider extending committee and commission eligibility to younger residents, we can do that in future. And I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Let's see, we'll take Daniel Jalkut and then Guillermo Hamlin. Mr. Hamlin? Okay. And then Pi Fisher.
Guillermo Hamlin, Precinct 14. I am very warmed and welcoming this bylaw, but question to Town Council, we saw that you were concerned about legal issues regarding age. Are we concerned for lack of a better word, legal concern trolling regarding immigrants serving on our town? Is there a way to anticipate this, seeing that precedent is not necessarily a factor anymore in pursuing these cases?
Mr. Cunningham?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Cunningham, Town Council, and thanks to Mr. Hamlin. No, I don't have any similar concerns. As long as the individual is a resident, immigration law is going to apply regardless of whether the individual is entitled to serve on a committee or commission. The reason why I raised concerns at the hearing stage regarding service on a committee, commission, or board by a person under the age of 18 is because some of those boards are subject to litigation lawsuits. And some of their decisions, if they're not at the age of majority, could be called into question if they're not 18. So there were legal requirements there, but I have no such similar concerns. I mean, I don't think that there's any place that I could find in the country that investigates an individual's immigration status before allowing them to serve on a committee, commission, or board. Some of the things that we talked about with Mr. Solomon regarding options for those under the age of 18 is to institute, perhaps at some future meeting, to consider a policy where they have non-voting members on other boards, commissions, and committees. That's something that's been done both in the Commonwealth and around the country, but there's no such policy that I've encountered by any particular municipality that would investigate the status of a resident's immigration prior to appointing them to a committee.
All right. I guess I'll just take that as is. I still have general concern, being that I was a former immigrant, naturalized citizen, and for a long time, I grew concerned about volunteering. Just for general concern, you can take that as it may. I welcome this. I support this. I just think that we should find ways to continue to protect those who are green card holders, visa holders, those who are of lapse status, so that they could participate without fear of any sort of reprisal from outside forces, outside of Massachusetts, within Massachusetts, groups that are demeaning of immigrants. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Pi Fisher next. And then Gordon Jamieson after that. Pi Is Pi Fisher here? Oh, Pi Fisher first, Mr. Jameson. Yeah, you're in the on-deck circle.
Pass.
Okay, Mr. Jameson?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Gordon Jameson, Precinct 12. I just have a quick question. Does this apply to townwide elected offices, and does this apply to town meeting?
I believe the answer is no. Mr. Cunningham, do you want to confirm that?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Cunningham, Town Council. No, it does not. It specifically amends the section of the bylaw that relates to committee membership.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Greenspan next. Miss Jennifer Letowski. And while we're waiting for Ms. Letowski, I keep switching back and forth with my tab that has like the title preferences, but I might just go to using first and last name because it's a lot of work. Ms. Letowski, go ahead.
Thanks. Jennifer Letowski, Precinct 3. So I moved to the United States in 2001, and I became a naturalized citizen in 2018. It's a long road. It takes a lot of time. That was through a series of different visas and permanent residency status. You know, one of the things most important, I think, for moving to a new home and a new community is to be able to develop those community ties. And these kind of committees are one way to do that. So I really encourage everyone to try to support that and provide that opportunity for people. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ben Rudick. Followed by Christopher Moore.
This is very tall. Hello. Hi, Ben Rudick, Precinct 5. So the very first time I addressed town meeting was about 6 years ago. It was around, I was not a town meeting member at the time, but I was working on a warrant article around expanding local voting to non-citizen permanent residents of Arlington, so green card holders. You guys may remember, if you were on town meeting then, that was a lively debate, but ultimately something that we passed with a large margin. The origin of that was learning that my neighbors, Gergely and Estelle, who had welcomed me into my neighborhood and had been there for many, many years prior and owned their home and had their kids in the school, et cetera, effectively had no representation in town government with regard to many decisions that affected their life. Sadly, that resolution that we passed here in town meeting about 6 years ago languished with the state, and they would not grant our home rule petition to enact that change. So still today, despite our wishes of town meeting, we do not have local voting for permanent residents. This is a wonderful step in that same direction. The history of how we got to this point is actually quite interesting and is worth a couple minutes of your time, in my opinion. Since the founding of the U.S. until roughly about World War I, you were able to vote locally and participate at a local and state level fully. Granted, you had to be a white landowning male for a large portion of that, but it wasn't based on your citizenship status. You know, your participation in federal elections was, but otherwise you were able to participate fully. It was really the xenophobic backlash following World War I that caused states one by one to roll back the ability for permanent residents that weren't citizens to participate fully in local and state activities. So again,
Mr. Rudick, I do appreciate the history. Like,
no,
I
no,
really,
I
really do.
I'm
Let's try to
I'm
keep
wrapping
it.
up.
Yeah,
Which is
thank
all to say that the time we're in is more aberrant than not, and it would be going back to what our country was originally to allow resident, not citizens, to be as deep a part of our communities as they could be. So I urge you to vote yes on this motion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Christopher Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Christopher Moore, Precinct 14. I move the question.
Okay, we have a motion to terminate debate under Article 12. We have a second. We'll take a voice vote. It's a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of terminating debate on all matters under Article 12, say yes. Yes. All those opposed say no. It is a 2/3 vote, and so we will proceed now to a vote on the main motion under Article 12. And while we bring up that screen, I'll just summarize that this is a motion to amend Title I, Article 1, Section 9B4 of the town bylaws by changing the term registered voters to residents with respect to the criteria for committee membership. Okay, voting is now open. You have about 20 seconds. Get your votes in. If you want to make this bylaw change to allow committees to have resident members, not just registered voters, press 1 for yes. If you want to leave the bylaws as is, press 2 for no. 3 to abstain. Okay, let's close voting. And the motion passes, 199 in the affirmative, 18 in negative, 2 abstentions. It is an affirmative vote. That brings us to Article 13. Ms. Mahan?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The town meeting, you have the board's recommended vote before you, and on this warrant article and the following one, since it involves the redevelopment board, and in the interest of not repeating each other, I would ask that our Assistant Director of Planning, Sarah Suarez, speak to this.
Great, thank you. And before we bring up Ms. Suarez, can we go to the speaker queue and clear that so we have a clean slate for everybody? Okay, speaker queue is now open, and Ms. Suarez, you have the floor. And do we have a presentation ready? No?
I don't have any slides.
Okay, great.
This one.
You're all set.
Okay. Hello, town meeting. Good evening. My name is Sarah Suarez, and I serve as your Director of Planning and Community Development. Tonight, I'm presenting Article 13, which should have been presented to town meeting probably back in 2010. Article 13 is a request to authorize town to file a home rule petition to amend the Town Manager Act to officially designate the Arlington Redevelopment Board as the town's Board of Survey instead of the Select Board. In 2008, town meeting approved the town meeting approved a petition to file the home rule legislation, which subsequently was approved by the state legislature in 2009. Following that, the town should have filed another petition to update any references in the Town Managers Act, but an oversight occurred, and at this time, there are 2 references in the Town Manager Act that reference the Select Board as the Board of Survey. The town has not received an application for the Board of Survey since that time, so this hasn't been an issue until recently when a property owner asked about it. After a deep dive into our records, we were able to piece together the steps that led to the redevelopment board being named as the Board of Survey. We have double-checked with the Select Board, and they definitely do not want to be the Board of Survey, so I am requesting approval of Article 13 to amend the Town Managers Act accordingly. That's it.
I don't think there was an actual, we already had the motion before us. Right. A second for. Yeah, I don't know what was seconded, but Ms. Suarez, I guess they liked what you said. So, okay, let's show the speaker queue. Let's see. Are we going to play the game of like who's going to ring in to terminate debate? Tell you what, while folks do that, does anyone want to raise their hand or let me know through audio from the satellite room if anyone actually wants to speak to this who doesn't wish to terminate debate? Okay, right there. Come on up. Sorry, I don't recognize you. Well, I recognize you in the procedural sense. Yes, Mr. Jaspin, is it? Yeah.
Barry Jaspin, Precinct
Yes.
18. Can we know what property owner made that request or asked that question? No?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What property owner?
What
No?
property owner?
She said that this came up because a property owner pointed out that there were these errors in the.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that's relevant to the
No?
scope.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Okay. Okay, all right, everyone. All right, let's settle down. Let's settle down. Mr. Fleming? James Fleming? All right. Seeing no other requests other than Matthew Miller, do you wish to speak to this? Yes. Okay. I need a microphone so they could so the stenographer can hear. Yep. There you go.
Thanks. Just a simple question.
I'm sorry, name and precinct?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Matt Miller, Precinct 11. I understand what we're voting on, but I don't understand the impact of what we're voting on. What exactly is this going to change besides a bureaucratic change?
I think it's just a bureaucratic change. Ms. Suarez, are there any implications, like real-world consequences to this?
It is literally a bureaucratic change. That's it.
Could I be the Board of Survey, or is this? Okay. Okay, it sounds like we don't have any more speakers. So let's proceed to a vote on the main motion for this highly bureaucratic change. Okay, so while we bring up a vote screen, this vote is to authorize, is a majority vote, to authorize and request the Select Board to file home rule legislation to update the Town Manager Act to reflect the Arlington Redevelopment Board as the Board of Survey. Okay, so if you're in favor of that change, press 1 for yes. If you're opposed to that change in the bylaws, press 2 for no, or 3 to abstain. Right. So this doesn't even set the redevelopment board as the Board of Survey. It files home rule legislation where hundreds of other people at the state level need to make a decision about this. So this has bureaucracy written all over it. Okay. Was it not to, I'm sorry, did I get that wrong? Ms. Suarez, did I?
Daniel Jalkut, Precinct 6. I'm just sort of surprised by the interpretation from the moderator, because I thought what I heard was that we're not filing for home rule legislation here. We are finally following up on home rule legislation that was granted in 2008.
Mike, Mr. Cunningham, do you want to explain? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Cunningham, Town Council. I think probably both is correct. It was achieved via home rule petition in 2009. However, the change to the Town Manager Act now needs to also be achieved via home rule petition. So that's why it's home rule legislation as well. And I just would state as in follow-up to some of the comments, I don't think it's the Select Board has no choice in the matter. It's not that they didn't want to serve as the Board of Survey. It's just that the legislation that was passed in 2009 requires this change.
Yeah, I mean, and it says here in the vote language from the Select Board report that the town does and hereby authorizes the Select Board to file home rule legislation to provide substantively as follows, right? Am I looking at the right one? 13, right? Yeah, okay. So I think what I said was correct, so. Okay, and so the voting is closed. 204 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative, and 2 abstentions. The vote passes. That brings us to Article 14. Okay, so let's, Ms. Bahan, actually, before she begins, can we just show the speaker queue? And we'll clear that. Okay, let's clear the speaker queue.
You have to be really tall for these microphones. This is just refiling a home rule petition again, and again, in the interest of time. And it's not because the Select Board doesn't want to do something. I'd ask our Assistant Planning Director to speak.
Okay, Ms., 1 second, Ms. Forrest. Can we clear the speaker queue? Okay, now we're on a clean slate. Okay, Ms. Suarez, go ahead.
Okay, hello again. My name is Sarah Suarez, and I am the Assistant Director of Planning and Community Development. Part of my role in the department involves staffing the Affordable Housing Trust, which was established by town meeting in 2021. As mentioned earlier by Karen Kelleher, the chair of the trust, I'll be presenting Article 14 on behalf of the Board of Trustees to request approval to reauthorize the filing of a home rule legislation to establish a real estate transfer fee in Arlington. Next slide. Many of you very likely recall voting in favor of a similar article a few years back, so this should hopefully be an easy vote in the affirmative. Article 14 is nearly identical to what was approved by town meeting in 2021 as a companion to an article which established Arlington's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The article was overwhelmingly supported by a vote of 187 to 50, and the home rule legislation was filed with the state legislature and ultimately did not make it through the legislative session. We are now required to refile a home rule legislation for the current legislative session so that we can move forward with establishing a real estate transfer fee. So next slide, please. What is a real estate transfer fee? For those of you who don't remember from the last one or were not here, a real estate transfer fee imposes a small fee on certain real estate sales at the time a property is sold. This fee would focus on high-end real estate sales to provide a sustainable source of revenue for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for the sole purpose of acquiring, creating, preserving, and supporting affordable housing. Next slide. Imposing a real estate transfer fee in Arlington does not occur with the passage of Article 14. There are several additional steps required in order for this to happen, and it is a multi-year process that involves substantial community input and future town meeting approval. Step number 1, which is the article before you today, simply authorizes a home rule petition to be filed. Again, approval of this article does not mean that we can start imposing a real estate transfer fee. It just means that if the state legislature approves the bill during the 2-year legislative session, Arlington is one step ahead of the game and can begin the public outreach component to determine the parameters that are appropriate for Arlington. Once we begin the public process, we will draft a bylaw, and once ready, it will go through the public hearing process and be presented to town meeting for approval. Assuming town meeting approval, it will still need to be approved by the Arlington voters via a ballot question. Next slide. The home rule petition as written does not dictate specific parameters for imposing a transfer fee, but provides the town with the flexibility needed to draft a local bylaw in the future that is developed through the public engagement process. This includes determining an appropriate fee, which properties the fee should apply to, who should be exempt from the transfer fee, and which party would be responsible for paying the fee. All of this will be up to town meeting and Arlington's voters. Next slide. The amount of revenue that could be generated depends on the established fee and the total value of eligible property sales each year. Right now, there is a range proposed between 0.5% and a maximum of 2%. To give you an idea of recent sales in 2024, there were 492 arm's-length residential transactions, and 252 of them involved sales over $1 million. That's a total of $361 million. So the chart on the screen, which you can hopefully see all the way in the back, shows that depending on the fee structure, this could generate between $1.8 million and $7.2 million per year. Assuming a $1 million sale price, that would be a minimum fee of $5,000, or at the maximum 2% fee, that would be a $20,000 fee. Again, it's up to Arlington and its voters to decide what the fee would be. These funds would be deposited into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to support affordable housing by leveraging these local dollars into the more substantial state and federal subsidies that the larger affordable housing projects rely on. As you've just heard from the chair of the trust, they have been extremely active since their formation, and the funding requests needed for these critical housing projects exceed the trust's funds. Next slide. So any eligible transfer fee would be due at the time of the transfer of title. If payment is not received as required, the town would be able to utilize its existing methods for collection and leading. The town will be able to set the requirements, waivers, exemptions, and regulations of any fee as part of a future public process. After that, the town and the trust would be required to prepare an annual report regarding the revenue collected, its uses, and its impact. Next slide. In summary, this is just the first step in a very lengthy process that will involve a tremendous amount of public participation. This was originally intended as a companion article to the establishment of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, because it would create a sustainable, continuous, and dedicated revenue source for the trust to support affordable housing efforts in Arlington. Real estate transfer fees have been found to be an effective, efficient, and equitable tool for raising revenue and are currently used in at least 33 different states. I very much appreciate your time this evening, and thank you for your consideration and for your continued support of the affordable housing initiatives in Arlington.
Thank you, Ms. Suarez. Let's see, so we have an amendment, so I'd like to invite Joe Babiarz up to offer the Babiarz amendment. And can we present, so we have a modified amendment, if we can show that with the red strikeout on it, for reasons that I'll explain. But Ms. Babiarz, why don't you introduce it, and I can explain how we got here.
Thank you, and if I may also ask for the slides to come up.
Oh, she wants the slides up. Do we have a slide presentation? Okay.
Thank you, Joe Babiarz, Precinct 15. In my little neck of the woods, Ridge Street seems to propagate mega mansions with the same regularity as the bunnies attacking everything. I'm not a big fan of mega mansions. How many affordable units do we have? 35 this year, but I think it's not enough. I think the answer whenever we have that question is simply not enough. So the moderator...
Yeah, can we get there's a slide deck, I believe.
Yep,
they're working on it.
but if you'd like to clarify the slides, the moderator and the town council and the clerk have been very generous with my technical inability. I will tell you that my use of Word and their use of Google Docs is incompatible. We'll let Bill Gates and Tom Cook sort all that stuff out down the road, but meanwhile, Mr. Moderator?
Actually, we have the slides up now, if you just
Okay.
want to go through that, and then we can... Oh, those are... Okay, so let me just pause, and I'll explain, while we can sort out the slide presentation. So, Ms. Babiarz got her amendment approved by me and distributed to the TMM email list, which you hopefully all saw, and then an eagle-eyed town meeting member pointed out that there was a potential scope issue. And so because I'd already approved it, I didn't want to disadvantage Ms. Babiarz because I should have caught that the first time around. So we made edits after it was announced to the TMM email list, and we have a marked up version of that in red strikeout, which we can show after Ms. Babiarz's presentation, that brings it back into scope. So I apologize for that, for not having caught that scope issue initially. So do we want to go back to this? Are these your slides here?
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Moderator.
go ahead. Okay, I'll resume your time. Go ahead.
Oh, they can?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So basically what I've done is some back-of-the-envelope calculations. And I use Zillow and some of our town records to come up with this. There right now is a house for sale on Ridge Street going for $895. You add the mass tax, transfer tax of $4,080, and yes, I rounded the numbers, you math geeks, so I'm going to call it $900,000. Based on the current, now I took current sales prices, and I have to tell you, I have an ace in my back pocket. My husband is the former commercial assessor in CRE for the city of Cambridge, so I said, how do you do this? He advised me, and because of, and in my conversations with developers, because of our stretch code, our energy requirements, some of the other things that we're doing, he really thought that 625 was a good number. I backed this up with Willow, with Zillow again, taking the mega mansion prices divided by the square foot, and I came up with between 600 and 637. So if you're going to have a 4,000 square foot house, you're looking at a cost of $2,500, give or take. You have the initial acquisition cost. So in order to break even or get something done, you're looking at $3.4 million. I don't think that that's a ridiculous price because we are seeing some properties in Arlington coming up to 3.4. Under the Mass State Transfer Tax, you'd get $15,500 from this. If you look at my amendment, which sets things at a $1 million threshold, you'd end up with, subtracting the $1 million, you come up with 2.4. If you look at my amendment at 1% of the tax, you'd end up with $24,000 from this. Why would somebody buy this house in Arlington? Real simple. There's scarcity property. We have a fabulous high school. We have amenities that other people don't have. If you live in Cambridge, where they are proposing a $2 million tax, you will see that they have to add on costs for going to the high school. Lexington also has a poorer high school than we do. So the total cost with the transfers now is $349. You can see that number. What I think we're doing is leaving money on the table, quite frankly. So there's a chilling effect of Article 14 if you pass it the way it is now. If the average selling price is $1 million or 1.3, and I wanted to, and I'm the perfect candidate for this. I could add on an ADU very easily. My developer tells me it would be $500,000. My total would be 1.8. The Arlington threshold could be for any house in the state. I love Stockbridge, Athol, Orange. They have nothing in common with our density. They have nothing in common with our MBTA requirements. So if I have that threshold, my taxable price would be 1,185 at 1%, 1/2 of 1%, which is on the table. I'd be under $6,000. That'd be okay. If you raise it to 2%, that's 23.7, and that's a lot for somebody on a fixed income like myself to have to deal with, particularly since with this ADU, I would have to pay increased real estate property taxes, all fair. So in this case, the uncertainty that I face in not knowing what the parameters are is that I won't make any capital improvements, I won't do anything about solar panels, and I'm not likely to go ahead and convert to a heat pump. Although we've done a fair amount of renovations. So what I'm trying to say is that by having it this flexible, you may end up, well, the Board of Selectmen can set it after the town votes. How long will that town vote take? How often can it be changed? Will it be changed with each April election? I don't know. But what I'm suggesting is something that is going to put more teeth and more money into the Affordable Housing Trust. And I guarantee you that when my constituents hear me talk about this, you will not be seeing me next year.
Okay,
Thank you.
Ms. Babiars, we have about 1 minute left, so why don't we use that time to show the amendment with the changes that I've made administratively so that it remains in scope. Can we bring up the version of the Babiars amendment that has the red strikeout text in it? So I believe this has not been shared. Is that right, Ms. Brazil? Like, it's not been published, right? Because this was very late breaking. Okay, so this is an edited version of the amendment that you all saw on the annotated warrant, except that I have these red strikeout sections because the change proposed in section 6 is where it falls out of scope, but because the warrant article text calls for, it specifically calls out the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for receiving those funds. And so changing it to the general fund would be out of scope. And so by striking that keeps this within scope. And can we scroll down? I think there's other references to section 6 in the comments section. So that was the vote language. And then we go down, and so here's the other mention in the comments. And so that item number 4 that speaks to the changes proposed in section 6 are stricken. Okay, and then if we go down, was there one more? Right. And also, I took the liberty of striking, with Ms. Babiar's permission, adding to the strikeout the as determined by the Department of Housing and Community Development, because that logically doesn't apply anymore, given the change to the threshold of $1 million. There's nothing, we don't need the Department of Housing and Community Development to determine if it's above a fixed number like that. Right. And so this is the administratively corrected Babiar's amendment that you'd be voting on if you accept it. So if you can make your motion.
I do, and I thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town meeting accept my amendment and not leave any money on the table.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, Ms. Babiar's amendment is in front of us as administratively edited here to remove the references to the edits of section 6. Okay, so let's go to the speaker queue now. We have Beth Elliott. Oh, actually, yeah, it's almost 9:30. I'm sorry. It's almost 9:30, so I think it's a good stopping point for a break. So we'll take a 10-minute break. Snacks are over on this side. If you're interested, 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay, before we get started with the speakers for this debate, just a couple of quick points. One, I was informed that the speaker queue looks like it was cleared like multiple times, so some folks lost their position in the queue. Apologize for that. We're going to try to improve that in the future. And the second point is it may have been presented or at least spoken during the presentation of zero. Okay, everyone, let's settle down. This is important. Okay, okay, let's go. It may have been presented or spoken that that the percentage was that one of the limits was 0.5%, whereas if you look in the vote language in the annotated warrant and in the select board report, it correctly has 0.05%. That is the correct number, 0.05%. So I apologize if that was presented or spoken incorrectly, but it is 0.05% as the lower bound. Okay, and with that, we'll take Beth Elliott, followed by Laura Weiner. Okay. Okay, so everyone settle down. Let's have some respectful quiet.
It's hard to compete with the snack line, I understand. Beth Elliott, Precinct 10. Sorry, I'm having trouble with this microphone. So yes, Beth Elliott, Precinct 10. I'm also a member of the Board of Trustees of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and serve as the secretary of that body. And I'm very proud of the results that we've been able to achieve working in partnership with others in the town, as Karen described in her report. And I agree with Ms. Barbara's that is still not enough. We're really excited about the work we've done, but it's still not enough. And taking this first step towards having the transfer tax in order to fund the trust operations is a really important first step. You know, I say this, my day job, I'm an affordable housing finance lawyer, so I've spent the last 20 years, give or take, working every day to take affordable housing deals kind of with my partners at the nonprofit I work for to put together all of the sources we need from all of the state and local and federal agencies that fund affordable housing and put those all together into projects that we can build and deliver safe, affordable homes to people who really aren't going to have another way to have those types of homes. And I would really love to see more of that in Arlington. The nonprofit I work for doesn't work in Arlington, but we do work in enough other places, and it's just really hard. It's really hard to get affordable housing built. It takes so many resources, both state, federal, and local, and oftentimes the state resources, they tell you, well, we see you have, construction prices are going up because of tariffs, and you've got another $1 million in your construction budget. We'd like to give you another $500,000 to help close that gap. But what is Arlington going to do? What is the town going to do? Where's the local match for the state money you're asking for? And so a key role of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund has been to put that local money into deals to leverage those state resources. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be increased pressure on those state resources. A lot of that pressure is coming from the federal government, specifically on housing programs. The announcements in the press around the Trump administration's budget They want to massively cut back on home and CDBG, which are two of the huge programs that fund affordable housing. There's also been reporting about massive cuts to Section 8 vouchers that people use to rent apartments. All of those things are just going to make it harder. The state of Massachusetts, Commonwealth puts a lot of money into housing, but a lot of the money that it puts in is federal. So when those home dollars go away, when those CDBG dollars go away, there's going to be a lot of pressure. 1/4 of Massachusetts' budget comes from the federal government. Cuts to Medicaid are going to mean that the state government needs to rearrange. It's going to be less money for housing. It's going to be a squeeze all over the place. We're already trying to figure out, how do we plan for this? How do we pivot? How do we still get these projects built? Funding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund through the transfer tax, if we get the home rule legislation passed, and if we get town meeting to approve, after a public process, a more detailed proposal that fits in the parameters of this very broad authorizing legislation, right? We want the Commonwealth, the legislature, to give us as much flexibility as they're willing to give us, so that town meeting can come back and design the program within those very broad parameters that makes the most sense for Arlington. Once town meeting does that, as Sarah described, it still needs to go out to the voters. So this is not going to be something that happens to Arlington without Arlington knowing it's going to happen. Voters are going to have a say. They're going to get to decide after town meeting decides what they think the proposal should be, what we think the proposal should be for the voters, then the voters will get to decide. This is just the first step, but I think it's an important one. This is going to be a long process, and the money's already starting to go away, right? The federal sources, the Commonwealth sources, the pressure on affordable housing development, it's already here. And so taking this first step now is really important. Waiting till next year or the year after that just pushes us even farther and farther down the road from being able to support the kinds of projects that town meeting and the town has consistently said, we want this in Arlington, we want more of this in Arlington. These types of funds from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund also, it's a little more flexible. I think another speaker will probably touch on this, and I think Karen mentioned it too, we can get money out the door faster if we're operating within the parameters of what town meeting has already given us to say, this problem is coming up now. We need the money now to show the state that Arlington is committed to this project, so the state should put more money in. I think it's also, about the amendment, I tell the development folks that I work with all the time, the finance teams that help put our deals together and have these really complicated spreadsheets. I am definitely a lawyer and not a commercial banker, so I'm not sure that I followed all of the math that was presented in support of the amendment. But I do know enough to know that it's bad to reduce flexibility. It's bad to not ask the state legislature for as much flexibility as we can have to make a decision that makes the most sense for Arlington. I also worry about pegging to a specific dollar amount. I hope people are wrong about massive inflation, but $1 million might not mean $1 million in a couple of years, depending on how things go. And I would just hate to see us get to a place where we have unintended consequences. And that's why the language in the proposed home rule legislation pegs to a median sales price. So in short, I really appreciate the way that the town meeting has supported affordable housing and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I ask for your vote in support. I ask you not to support the amendment. And I look forward to the legislature actually acting so we can have a good, robust conversation in town meeting and with the voters about what this should be for Arlington. Thank you.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you. Laura Weiner, and then Andrew Greenspan following.
Laura Weiner, Precinct 8. I'm also a board member of the Housing Corporation of Arlington. I'm not speaking for the Housing Corporation of Arlington, but I am speaking about the Housing Corporation. I'm speaking in support of Article 14 to allow the town to refile a home rule petition with the legislature to allow a real estate transfer fee. I've been involved with the HCA for many years, and I can tell you that developing affordable housing just gets harder and harder. The cost of land and construction go up, but the subsidy dollars don't. The vast majority of housing subsidies that we receive from the state are federal dollars that come through the state. We're all concerned about the future of federal funding and the net effect of cuts or even level funding is that projects have to apply to the state more than once to get funded, which ends up taking years before a shovel goes into the ground. HCA's most recent project on Sunnyside Avenue first applied to the state for funding in 2022. Construction is about to begin this summer because that's how long it takes to get a funding commitment and then an agreement in place. And that's not at all unusual. There's too many worthy projects in the state for the amount of funding that's available. My point being, if there was more funding available, HCA could do more projects at a faster pace. Funding is the limiting factor. I probably don't need to tell most people about the need for affordable housing. Most of us know someone who is struggling with housing, or perhaps someone among us is struggling. Roughly a quarter of the households in our town are low and moderate income, and roughly a third of senior households pay more than 30% of their income for housing, the definition of affordability. Through my work at HCI, I've gotten to know a number of people who live in affordable housing, and I can't tell you how much having stable housing has meant to everyone that I've spoken with about it. If passed, this is just the first step in a long process that ends with voters making a final call. If it passes the legislature, a process will be put in place to determine the percentage of the sales and exemptions and all the parameters that are needed. A yes vote on Article 14 will allow us to begin the debate about a fair and reasonable bylaw that will help us support our lower-income households and open our doors a bit wider. One last thing I want to say is that I don't support the amendment because I think that it will serve us better to have a fair and open process in which we discuss the exemptions and the percentages and whatever other parameters need to be discussed, rather than deciding that at this point without that process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Take Andrew Greenspan and then Gordon Jameson.
Andrew Greenspan, Precinct 5. A question. Per the Babiar's amendment, if we fixed the values rigidly in the home rule petition, would the town then only be able to set the rates as the state legislature approves? And then if we needed to change it due to economic conditions such as inflation or otherwise, would we need another home rule petition to be able to adjust it?
Mr. Cunningham, do you have an answer to that?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Cunningham, Town Council. Yes, if we were to set this by statute, if we wanted to amend it later, we would need to file further home rule legislation to amend it.
Okay, thank you. Given that information, I advocate voting against the Babiar's amendment as it would be too restrictive and tie our hands. Economic conditions change year to year, as we can see by post-COVID inflation and continued skyrocketing costs to purchase single-family homes in Arlington. If this were approved by the state legislature, the main motion, the actual numbers within the allowed range would have to be determined by the relevant boards and commissions in town, as stated before, and town meeting would have to vote again to approve those numbers to enact the transfer fee. So I am against the Babiar's amendment, and I support the main motion for all the reasons the proponents have stated.
Great, thank you. Take Gordon Jameson next, and then Vincent Baudouin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Gordon Jameson, Precinct 12. When this passed before, it was passed in conjunction with the establishment of the trust fund. I voted for both those measures. So it passed before. The State House, unfortunately, did not get it together to pass it, our request. King George went home for a nap, I guess. So we have to do this again. So this has 3 steps, as has been mentioned: home rule, and then town meeting, and then the voters. So I think it's way too early to be setting parameters And we do not want this to be set by the state, because then, as was mentioned by Mr. Greenspan's question, we would have to go through this again. And given the fact that it's taken us at least 2 tries to get this passed, we do not want to be going back for a 3rd time. So I would urge a vote against the amendment and for the motion as presented by the reporting body. And it's 0.05 to 2, is that correct, Mr. Moderator?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
The percentage there is 0.05 to 2?
0.05%.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all, bye.
Thank you. Vincent Baudouin and then Pi Fisher. Although I hear that 3 times is a charm.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Vincent Baudouin, Precinct 1. I move to terminate debate.
I'm sorry, what was the motion? I missed that because I was getting, oh, to terminate debate, thank you. We have a motion to terminate debate that's been seconded. 2/3 vote. All those in favor of terminating debate on all matters under Article 14 say yes. Yes. All those opposed say no. No. Debate is terminated. So we will now bring up a vote on, first, the Babiar's amendment, which seeks to amend the main motion in sections 2, 3, and 4A, but no change to section 6, because that would be out of scope as specified. So if you're in favor of the Babiar's amendment to amend the main motion, press 1 for yes, 2 to reject the Babiar's amendment to leave the main motion as is, and 3 to abstain. Okay, let's close voting on the Babiar's amendment. And the amendment fails. 15 in the affirmative, 188 in the negative, and 6 abstentions. So the main motion remains unamended. So it remains the recommended vote from the select board. So let's give a point of order. Yep. The big one. Yeah.
Robin Bergman, Precinct 12. I just wanted to know what the threshold for the vote on the main motion is. Thanks.
For the main, yeah. So for the amendment, it's always majority for amendment. For the main motion, in this case, it's majority. Yep. Okay, so let's bring up a vote for the main motion to authorize the select board to file home rule legislation to allow the town to establish a real estate transfer fee upon the sale of property in the town. All those in favor, if you're in favor of that, authorizing the select board to do that, press 1 for yes. If you don't want the select board to do that, you can press 2 for no, and they will not be authorized to file the home rule legislation. Or you can press 3 to abstain. This is a vote, again, on the main motion, which is the recommended vote of the select board under Article 14. Okay, did our countdown go away, or? Okay. Okay, we can close voting. This is a majority vote, and the vote passes. 168 in the affirmative, 40 in the negative, 3 abstentions. That brings us to Article 15. And can we show the speaker queue and clear that while we, let's see, I believe Mr. Feeney is going to introduce Article 15, is that right? Okay, speaker queue is open. Mr. Feeney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jim Feeney, Town Manager. So this warrant article seeks to protect the senior tax relief measure passed by town meeting in 2019 with 97% support, and was subsequently approved by residents at the ballot box in 2023 with 85% of the vote. I will note this article received unanimous support from the Board of Assessors, Finance Committee, and Select Board, and provides for the option to fund the means-tested senior citizen property tax exemption from the overlay, which is the same way other abatements and exemptions are funded. In short, during the first year of implementation this past fall, it was discovered there were some potential challenges with applying the exemption. Fortunately, the Select Board was still able to provide for an exemption in the amount of 50% of the state circuit breaker income tax credit. However, this was the only option, despite our special act allowing for a range of 50 to 200% of the state circuit breaker. At the same time, had there been just a few more recipients this past year, we would necessarily have had to consider providing a 200% benefit. Of course, that sounds like it would be advantageous to our senior citizen recipients in year one, and it would be. But ultimately, that would have a net negative financial impact through the unintended consequence of likely disqualifying these seniors from receiving the state circuit breaker tax credit in the following year, and therefore also not qualifying for Arlington's exemption in the subsequent year. The same issue was experienced by other highly residential communities, and we borrowed some language from Hingham in hopes of amending our special act in advance of Arlington finding itself in a position where we can either offer no options or only a 200% option. So I'll turn it over to our Director of Assessments, Dana Mann, to walk through the mechanics of the exemption itself.
Okay, I believe that we don't have slides to present, but the presentation is printed out on the back table if you picked it up on the way in.
Good evening, town member.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, the name and title.
Dana Mann, Director of Assessments. If everyone has the presentation that was on the back table, what I'm going to do is walk through these 6 slides and give you some view of, as Jim said, the mechanics of this exemption. We'll begin on the second page. I want to go over a couple of things here. First, what I want to do is introduce some of these terms. You'll hear the terms options quite a bit, and if you look at the first column, we have a range of percentages from 50 to 200%, and what those percentages are is the percentage of the circuit breaker credit that the applicant was awarded by the state. And so we are choosing, or the Select Board is choosing, from this range of percentages, and that calculates the amount of the award. And so we can see in the next column that we convert that percentage to a total exemption tax. This is the amount of tax that will be abated. And moving along, we move to the 4th or 5th column here, exempted assessment. So we convert the tax amount to an assessment or a value number. To calculate to determine the exemption, we then reduce the residential class total value by this amount, but by maintaining the same levy for the residential class, we create a new tax rate. And we can see on the following page, so moving to page 3, this would be the 50% option from the previous page. And this is what's called a qualifying option. And we can see that by looking at the number in the very bottom right of the page. That number must not exceed the number in the middle of the page, which is the levy limit. And as you can see, this particular option did not exceed the levy limit and was therefore a qualified option. Moving to page 4, this is an example of a non-qualifying option. And we look at the same number in the bottom right-hand corner, and we compare it to the set of three numbers in the middle of the page. The bottom is the levy limit. So here we can see that bottom right corner exceeds the levy limit. This is what would make it a non-qualifying option, or would take that option off the board, so to speak. So with that, I've created two scenarios. The first scenario is by changing a few of the numbers in this presentation, we created a scenario where none of the options qualify, which would leave applicants, qualified applicants, without any award. And as Jim just went over, there's also a scenario where only the largest option is available. And we talked about the unintended consequences of that particular option. In most cases, all of the applicants for 25 last year would not qualify again this year because of the reduction to their tax amount. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mann. Let's show the speaker queue, and we have Sanjay Newton. Pass. Kristen Penneron. Pass. Seeing no more speakers in the queue, we can proceed directly to a vote on the main motion, which is the recommended vote of the Select Board. And so while we bring up that vote, I'll explain that this main motion is... I'm sorry, what? Was there a point of order? Ms. LaCourte? Oh, okay. Ms. LaCourte, do you want to address the meeting? Yeah. And followed by Mr. Wagner.
Annie LaCourte, Precinct 13. Several of my seatmates are a little confused, so I thought perhaps I could clarify. Hopefully, I will not muddy the waters. What we're doing here is we are voting to allow us to use money that's not in the levy limit. That is money that we've put into what's called the overlay, which is the dollar amount we reserve for abatements. You'll see it in the budgets. Overlay reserve, we put about $600,000 a year in. To take some of that money to be able to apply it to providing this exemption so that when we do all of the math and we discover that because of how the tax rate is set, we can't actually offer an exemption option without exceeding the levy limit. So it allows us to just take from another pot of money, add it to the levy, and say, well, not add it to the levy, but use it to fulfill the excess of money that we would need. In other words, if you look at Dana's examples, when you look at the ones where the amount of, the dollar amount with the exemption exceeds the levy limit, we'd be able to take some money from another pot to add to be able to offer options. So it's kind of technical, but it's really important because otherwise we might find ourselves with a day when we can't give seniors this exemption, or we can only give it to them in a way that makes them ineligible for other exemptions, so it doesn't help them. So I'm asking you to just trust that those of us who are math geeks understand this, and it's a good thing, it's good for seniors, just vote yes. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner, and then Mr. Jameson.
Gordon, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Gordon Jameson, Precinct 12. and a member of the Board of Assessors. The Board of Assessors don't need to just trust. We will take care of this. This is our responsibility to move monies. So essentially what happens is we take some money out of the levy as a residential exemption. It's in a bucket over here. We have to figure out how to fund that bucket, and we now have an additional way to fund that bucket by using the overlay reserve, which is under the purview of the Board of Assessors. And then it will work out fine. Thank you.
Great. Okay, seeing no more speakers, we'll proceed to the main motion. For real. Okay, so the main motion would authorize the Select Board to request an amendment to Chapter 285 of the Acts of 2020 called an act authorizing the town of Arlington to establish a means-tested senior citizen property tax exemption. Voting's open, so you can vote while I'm reading. By inserting at the end of Section 3 the text, or funded by an appropriation or transfer from existing funds while not exceeding 1% of the municipality's tax levy. If you're in favor of authorizing the Select Board to do that, press 1 for yes. This is a request to the state legislature by the Select Board to authorize them. And if you're opposed, let's hold on with closing of voting because this is kind of complicated. If you're opposed to that and you wish to not authorize the Select Board to request that amendment of the state legislature or state entity, you can press 2 for no or 3 to abstain. Okay, so let's just give a few more seconds since there's a lot of words there. Okay, let's go ahead and close voting now. Yeah. And this is a majority vote. And the vote passes 198 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, and 6 abstentions. That brings us to Article 16. Can we bring up the speaker queue and clear that? And I believe Mr. DeCoursey is going to lead us off. Okay, this needs to be cleared.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Steve DeCoursey, member of the Select Board. We're recommending favorable action on Article 16, and what we're doing is requesting town meeting to authorize the Select Board to file home rule legislation, asking the legislature to allow us to put a ballot question next spring in 2026, asking voters if they want to increase the number of package store licenses from 6 to 8. Currently, we have 6 licenses. The last time voters were asked to do this was back in 2019. 72% of voters voted affirmatively. It's a 3-step process, and this is the first step for that. Reason for us coming back now is that we have issued all 6 of the available licenses, and the feeling is that we should have additional licenses. We've heard from our Planning and Community Development Department. They have received inquiries from different businesses that may want to come into town that might not have the opportunity because of the lack of licenses. We did have a hearing recently from a store that wanted a license, understood that we didn't have the license to give, but they wanted to make a presentation anyway. So for that reason, we're starting the process and asking for town meeting approval tonight.
Thank you, Mr. DeCoursey. Let's go to the speaker queue, starting with Adam Lane and then JP Lewicki.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Adam Lane, Precinct 3. Fellow town meeting members, if you're like me and you follow the news, then you're all interested in drinking more these days. However, I happen to feel that the town is adequately served at the moment by 6 package store licenses. There are other package stores on the periphery of the town in Lexington and Medford and Somerville, just to name 3. And I think it's important that we maintain a small amount of friction in the acquisition of alcohol to prevent it from more easily falling into the hands of the young people in this town. I utilize parks and public spaces in this town, and I see the nip bottles at Hills Hill and the broken beer bottles at Menominee Rocks Park. Obviously, young people are going to attempt to drink, and we were all young once and may have done similarly. But the fact is, a little friction to make it harder for them is, I think, wise. I also happen to think that it would be a dereliction of our duty as representatives of the town, as representative democracy, to shunt this off to a plebiscite. The beauty of representative democracy is sometimes we make hard decisions that may not be quite as popular at the time as a vote in favor of more package stores, but I think in the long term serve the town better. So I thank you all for your time, and I urge you to vote against this.
Great, thank you. Next is JP Lewicki and then Christopher Loretti.
JP Lewicki, Precinct 2. Mr. Moderator, I guess my first question is there a current legal maximum number of package stores that the town could operate?
I'll defer to Town Council, Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Cunningham, Town Council. Yes, as in accordance with Mr. DeCoursey said, the number is 6.
Mr. Moderator, I guess I was wondering.
I think is the question, is there a limit that we could raise it to beyond that?
There is a limit. It's set by the Alcoholic Beverages Commission. I think the number is, it's 10 would be the maximum that's set by state statute in accordance with each municipality's population.
Thank you.
As a point that might be helpful for the meeting, so that's a state limit, but this is home rule legislation, but would not be able to exceed that limit. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Moderator.
Okay.
Thank you. I guess my main question is kind of when you're choosing the number of licenses to add, I guess I was kind of curious about kind of the reasoning for why 2 exactly. I mean, you could have done 1, you could have done 3 or 4. So I guess if you have any thoughts on kind of why 2 instead of 1, 2, 3, or 4?
Yeah, so if you take 0.05% of the Arlington population, no. Mr. DeCoursey, do you want to take that?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yeah, we had a discussion about the number. I just want to elaborate on your earlier question. Arlington has had a history of doing this incrementally. We did it with 3 package stores about 20 years ago. We went from 3 to 5. 6 years ago, we went from 5 to 6. And now that the request here is to go to 8. In the absence of all these special acts, state law, as Attorney Cunningham said, would allow us 10. You get 1 store per 5,000 residents, or 1 license per 5,000 residents, or fraction of 5,000. Because we're over 45,000 residents, that's how we get to the 10. In terms of the number that we picked, we had an additional license out there for a little while, and there was a discussion, given our history, we didn't want 4. We felt 1 was too little. It gives us some flexibility, and we don't have anything in mind right now, but we just felt it was better for us to have additional licenses available, 1. But 2, we wanted to avoid the situation where all the licenses are granted and it creates a secondary market, and that might prevent some people from entering the market because they would go through a transfer process.
Thank you. I guess I have maybe one final question, which is to make sure my understanding is correct, that the existing limit that we have to raise by home rule legislation is kind of a legacy of being a former dry town, and that we just kind of historically raised it up and down, but yeah.
For those that were here then, I mean, that was a big debate whether it was going to be 1 license or 3 licenses at the beginning. And I will say the last time we did this, and I think I said this during my comments, the original recommendation was to go from 5 to 7, but on town meeting floor, the actual recommended vote was changed from 7 to 6. And I think that, again, is consistent with the history here.
Thank you. On that historical note, I move to amend the motion to increase or to change the 2 places where it says 2 additional licenses to 4 additional licenses.
Okay, we have a second. That was like really quick seconds. So we now have an amendment in front of us on top of the main motion, to amend the additional 2 to an additional 4, correct, Mr. Lewicki?
That's correct.
Okay.
So I think that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And so next we have Christopher Loretti, and then after that, Lisa Bealfield. And by the way, 1 out of 5,000 is 0.02%. I was off by a factor of 2.5. Okay, Mr. Loretti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chris Loretti, Precinct 7. I'd like to begin with a question. Mr. DeCoursey said we've used up all 6 of the licenses. I can only think of 4 package stores in town. Am I missing 2?
I think the consensus that you're missing 2.
Are all 6 of those stores operating?
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yeah, we've issued 6 licenses. There's 5 stores that are open presently.
And which is the closed one?
It's not closed. It hasn't opened yet, 232 Mass Ave.
Okay. I was wondering, what's the process? So you are taking licenses back, like from Menotomy Beer and Wine when they close, is that correct?
The Menotomy Beer and Wine, we had reached out to them as part of our renewal process. That had closed. They had not secured a new lease on Broadway. And in the relicensing or the renewal procedure, which takes place in December, we reached out to them. They said, we no longer have an interest in the site. We can't continue. And that license was pulled.
Okay, thank you. I would urge you not to vote for the amendment. How you vote on the other is up to you, but certainly we don't need that many licenses when at this point, there's not the demand. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Bielefeld, and then Peter Fiore. Yeah, can we show the speaker queue?
Lisa Bielefeld, Precinct 12. I'd like to ask the moderator to ask the meeting to let Eric Viola, hopefully I don't pronounce his name right, who's the owner of the Mystic Wine Shop and a resident of Winchester, to speak.
Since the requested guest is not a resident of Arlington, I'll put a majority vote to the meeting by voice vote. All those in favor of allowing the speaker to speak, say yes. Yes. All those opposed say no. No. It passes. Your guest may speak. And please come up and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Just a name and...
Eric Viola, and I am not
microphone, please. Let's speak into the mic more closely.
Oh. Hi, good evening. My name is Eric Viola. I am the owner of Mystic Wine Shop, located next to Stop and Shop. My address is 190 High Street in Winchester. So, good evening, town meeting members. Thank you for giving me a few moments of your time. As the owner of Mystic Wine Shop, I've been a part of this business community for close to 40 years. My grandfather and his 2 brothers started a business in 1963 on School Court, a commercial printing operation. I got involved in that business in the 1980s. And in 2013, I opened up Mystic Wine Shop. That makes me old, 40 years of being in this town. I've seen a lot of changes. In 2013, I opened my store, and at that time, there were 5 stores in town. Then it became 6. Currently, there are now back to 5 stores being open. And the reason being is that the town of Arlington really can't support 6 stores. If another license opens up, a weaker store will close, and then the license will transfer again. I think supporting the businesses that are here now is the best way for this town. It's not going to draw in more business to an area. It's just going to take away business from another store. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Peter Fiore and then Carmine Granucci. And while Mr. Fiore is coming up, just make sure I have this right. Ms. Brazil, 4 additional stores to be allowed under the Lewicki Amendment. Is that correct? Okay, very good. Mr. Fiore, go ahead.
Peter Fiore, Precinct 2. Please bear with me. I have 3 sheets of paper I've been writing notes on, and I forgot which one I was supposed to start with. My first question, Mr. Moderator, is that 6th package store at 232 Mass Ave, that store was licensed 2 years ago. Why hasn't it opened yet?
Let's see, does Mr. DeCoursey or Mr. Feeney or anyone else have an answer to that? Mr. DeCoursey?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'll try to give, with my knowledge, I may not have a complete answer here. There was a zoning issue with that parcel. There had been a cleaners there, and there was a question of whether the use, which is a non-conforming use, had been abandoned. And so there was a process through the Zoning Board of Appeals that needed to take place. That took some time. I will say we are at a point now where if this isn't built by the end of the year, it's likely that the license will not be renewed because it has gone on for a long time. We did reach out to both the landlord and to the package store at the end of the year, and we were told because of the zoning difficulties, that's what extended the time frame. So we're at a point, if you don't see something there by the end of the year, it's unlikely that license will continue.
Thank you. I've never seen a line out the door and down the street at any of the existing package stores. I admit I've never been by on New Year's Eve, but the rest of the time, never. And all the times I've gone around town in my neighborhood, I hear complaints about schools, property taxes, affordable housing. Nobody's ever said to me, you know, the problem with this town is we don't have 8 package stores. The gentleman that spoke, I think that we should have more of a concern than just for the existing businesses. My concern is that we could make it cheap enough, easy enough, and convenient enough to go to the package store that maybe a few people a night decide they're not going to go out to have drinks with dinner, and that it undermines the restaurants that actually pay meals tax to the town. Package stores, and no disrespect to the gentleman who spoke, they're kind of parasitic in that there are no taxes to the town that I understand that come to the town from the sale of those liquor bottles that go out the door. Unlike with a restaurant, when you're drinking in the restaurant, the meals tax is coming back to the town. The Director of Economic Development here, it says that she has not identified any tangible adverse consequences that could flow from increasing the licenses. I'd like to know how she determined that there would be no adverse consequences on the quality of life in Arlington. That's more a rhetorical question, but it is legitimate. I'd like to know how she determined that there would be no adverse consequences in terms of public safety. I'd like to know how it is that she determined that there would be no tangible adverse consequences to public health. And that's something we never talk about anymore, is public health. I guess it's gone the way of getting your kids vaccinated against measles. When we went from a wet to a dry town, one of the concerns was that we not have bar rooms, that we have responsible drinking, and you had to eat in the restaurants when you had drinks. That's not true anymore. The select board have voted, I'll go off scope if I talk about it, but that's changed considerably. And I think maybe we should get back to that, to talking about public health and package stores and concentrating them in neighborhoods, and the fact that 3 package stores are clustered around the high school, and that doesn't seem to bother anybody. I'll try not to use all my time.
There's a timer. You see it on the tablet in front of the center podium. If you look toward the center podium, there's a stool with...
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing my glasses. So finally, my last point is this. There are significant changes in the town coming in the near future. A 6th package store, maybe. A brew pub, restaurants that don't even need to have seating or eating to allow drinking. We have these great beer gardens that are run. You can rent the town hall and drink here, the Robbins House. There's plenty of places and ways to have alcohol. There's plenty of significant changes coming. Let's just wait and see how the town adjusts to them. Let's just leave well enough alone. And if the Make Arlington Gin and Tonics Again crowd commits an insurrection because they feel the package store vote was stolen, then so be it. We can come back and we can vote for this. But
But right now, just, it's not broken, don't fix it.
Great, thank you, Mr. Fiore. Please, Carmine Granucci next, and then James Fleming. Please don't drink at town meeting.
Carmine Granucci, Precinct 21. I move to terminate debate on all matters before it.
Okay, we have a motion to terminate debate and a second, 2/3 vote. All those in favor of terminating debate on all matters under Article 16, say yes. Yes. All those opposed, say no. No. Debate is terminated. And so we have two motions before us. We'll first take a vote on the Lewicki amendment. We might need like a generic voting slide for that, okay? And this would change the main motion to allow 4 additional package stores instead of just 2. So if you're in favor of that change to the main motion, press 1 for yes. If you want to leave the main motion as is, just 2 additional package stores, then press 2 for no, or 3 to abstain. So press 1 if you want to increase the additional package stores to 4. Okay, let's close voting. And as always, because this is an amendment, it's a majority vote. And the amendment fails. 53 in the affirmative, 152 in the negative, 2 abstentions. That takes us to the main motion, which is the recommended vote of the Select Board to authorize the Select Board to file home rule legislation to permit the placing on the 2026 annual town election ballot a question to authorize the Select Board to increase the current number of all alcohol package store licenses from the current number of 6 to allow 2 additional licenses. I don't know why they just don't say 8, but yes, 2 additional licenses beyond the 6 that we already have. So if you're in favor of authorizing the Select Board to file that home rule legislation, press 1 for yes. If you wish to not authorize the Select Board to file that home rule legislation, press 2 for no, or 3 to abstain. Okay, voting is closed. And the main motion passes. 112 in the affirmative, 92 in the negative, 5 abstentions. That brings us to Article 17, and I believe Ms. Mahan is going to lead us up. Can we show the speaker queue quickly before Ms. Mahan begins? And clear the speaker queue. Okay, those are all old. Okay, it's now clear. Ms. Mahan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is another home rule legislation that we are refiling regarding SCARs, second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides. The voting members present on the Select Board voted unanimously for this, and I would ask Elaine Crowder to come up and speak to it.
Great, so we have a point of order from Mr. Tosti? Yeah.
Could you please leave the speaker queue up there? It's very hard to know whether you want to speak, whether you want to get on the list, if you don't have the speaker queue there.
Great. Unfortunately, we have a presentation right now, so can we just briefly show the speaker queue? Unfortunately, we can only show one thing up there at a time, and we have a presentation that's coming. So it's clear right now. Okay. Okay, Ms. Crowder, you have the floor. And it looks like your presentation is up, so.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Elaine Crowder, Precinct 19. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Yes, this is basically a reboot of something voted in 2022. Next slide. Just a reminder for those who are not in town meeting in 2022 or who may have forgotten, we voted for 3 buckets of things. The first was a bylaw, the second a home rule petition, and the third a resolution. The bylaw, it was avoided actually banning any rodenticide in town, but what it did do was say we would like to track poison use, and we would like to educate the public by requiring or asking pest operators to provide education about what eschars do in the food chain. The home rule petition went to the state to ask permission to regulate these second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides. This is required because the state preempts or requires that, or says that they have all power over any kind of pest control in the state. And the third thing that we passed and is in force was a resolution that where the public, we now have a public policy, and that public policy is that we have banned eschar rodenticides on town land. This is possible because the town is essentially being seen by the state as a private property owner, just as each of us has a decision whether to use eschars on our own properties, the town can do the same. The town, however, cannot say, pest operator, you cannot put eschars on that person's private property. So what do eschars do? This is a very quick question. Next slide, please. Very quick look at what happens. This is a hawk that I saw in Concord, March 16th of this year. Red-tailed hawk that is bleeding from its nose and mouth, which is the prime symptom of eschar poisoning. Eschars are an anticoagulant, and it prevents clotting, and it causes bleeding out. So why do we want to pass this home rule petition at this time? The first thing to know is that home rule petitions expire after 2 years, so we need to revote and resend it to the Mass Legislature. The second is, it's still needed. We have wildlife that is continuing to die, despite having our public property ban. And if we turn the next slide, please, sorry. Next slide. So the wildlife deaths that we've had since our ban went into effect are 9 owls, 8 hawks, 1 eagle, dead. 1 fox, 1 skunk, dead. Notice that all of these are top predators, and especially it is affecting our raptors. This is because these are the animals that are taking prey, taking rodents as their main prey source, their main food. And owls are especially vulnerable because they hunt at night when mice and rats are most active. So next slide, and next slide. So just another picture, we have a homegrown hawk here. These photos are courtesy of Laura Kiesel, who's been very active in promoting the non-use of rodent poisons. So we have a hawk that was born here in Arlington. It fledged to fly. It was controlling rodents as it ate rodents to grow, and it died from poisoning in Arlington. It no longer is providing that rodent control. So our problem then, next slide, is that rodents do not respect property lines. They don't know the difference between public and private property. We can ban it on public property. They will still find poison on our private properties where pest operators are allowed by the state, in fact, insured by the state, to be able to place eschars. So please do pass Article 17, so that we can take this back to the state. Next slide. Once we pass this in this town meeting, it goes for a vote at the state. The select board submits it. Representative Sean Garbely has said he would shepherd it through the Massachusetts state legislature process, committees, et cetera. And one thing to note is that this time we're not alone. We were pretty much in the vanguard in 2022. This time, there are many towns that are joining in this effort. Home rule petitions on this topic have come from Newton, Brookline, Lexington, neighbors, close neighbors, Belmont and Lexington. So it is a growing trend. The legislature is hearing from many more people. We have one loose end. Next slide. And that is what happened to our 2022 bylaw.
You have about 30 seconds.
It's on hold. The Attorney General did not approve it, but it can be passed if we send this home rule petition back to the legislature and it passes. So, last slide. This is what's at stake. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll take Beth Malofchik and then Sam Polk. Can we show the speaker queue? Okay. Ms. Malofchik.
Thank you. Beth Malofchik, Russell Street. I hadn't prepared to talk on this, but I was in the cemetery when MK, the bald eagle, was in her death throes, and I came upon the wildlife rescue team picking her up off of the ground and just cradling the eagle in her arms. It's not a sight I want to see again, and it's just really difficult to imagine and was horrible. I used to go to the cemetery every morning to watch the eagles in the nest there. We used to be near the chapel. In December, we were on our back deck. I live in Arlington Center in the shadow of Winslow Tower, and we looked into the neighbor's yard, and we were like, what is that on the ground there? This kind of a ray. And so I go outside, downstairs, hop off the wall into my neighbor's yard. We thought it was a hawk. It was an owl, splayed out with its beautiful wings and feathers on the ground, dead. So we got permission from the neighbor and contacted Laura Kiesel and transported this owl to a vet who does the necropsy. That was rodenticide poisoning. And then a few weeks ago, a dead hawk, red tail, half a block from my house, right on the way to Cook's Hollow. There are other ways that we can control rodents. We know this from the very good educational initiatives that Laura and Elaine have shared with us. So I just encourage everyone to support this warrant article, and if you do use rodenticides yourself, to please choose one that is not an eschar. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I'll take Sam Polk and then Gordon Jameson.
Hello, I'm Sam Polk, and I wanted to give a little bit of
precinct,
commentary.
please.
Sorry, Precinct 12. I wanted to give a little bit of commentary on the ecological impact of this article. So in the past century, there has been significant habitat loss and DDT usage that has impacted bald eagle pairs in Massachusetts. We are just starting to see a recovery, and as of 2023, there is an estimated 80 pairs in Massachusetts. One of those bald eagles was killed by eschars. I'm voting yes. I urge you to too.
Okay, Gordon Jameson and then Ed Tremblay.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Gordon Jameson, Precinct 12, very quickly. What type of enforcement can we be promised for this article? Because I think about the electric leaf blowers, and I still hear leaf blowers that are not electric. So I want to make sure that we have some brass tacks enforcement concepts planned by the
Mr. Feeney or Mr. Cunningham?
by the manager et al.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Cunningham, Town Council, and thank you, Mr. James, for the question. The particular article and motion before us now is just for the home rule petition. As Ms. Crowder talked about in her initial presentation, the bylaw is on hold pending resolution of the home rule issue. That bylaw and any enforcement actions that would flow from it would not go into effect or be considered prior to the passage of home rule petition. We need to do that first because Chapter 132B, which is the state law regarding the regulation of these types of rodenticides and other pesticides, it really occupies the field. So the AG is not going to touch it until there's home rule legislation that permits it.
Okay, so so I strongly urge passage so we can get to that, and then we can revote our own rules about how to control it. Is that correct?
I can just say the only thing that's before this body tonight is the home rule legislation.
But it's step one towards being able to control them in Arlington.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
And I have a follow-up procedural question, Mr. Cunningham, which is, can the state legislature, they can amend this, correct, at their level? And so we don't necessarily know the particulars of the state legislation. This is just filing the home rule petition that they can then later, that they can amend once they legislate. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct, Mr. Moderator. Any home rule legislation that we send to our legislators is subject to amendment by the House clerk, Senate clerk, legislators therein. I mean, even before it gets to a committee or the full floor of either legislative body, it's subject to changes from what we do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Tremblay and then Carl Wagner.
Ed Tremblay, Precinct 19. So my son had a little bit of a rat problem at his house. And I strongly encouraged him not to use rat poison because of all of this. So he experimented a little bit and he decided to use wine. And it turns out rats really like wine. And after he fed them a lot of wine, we found dead rats. So it appears that they like to drink themselves to death. And since we now have more package stores, I would encourage people to try wine instead of rat
Mr. Tremblay,
poison.
Article 16's been disposed of, by the way. Okay.
But not this one. I'm in favor of not using rat poison and trying other things. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Tremblay. Carl Wagner and then Nancy Bloom.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Carl Wagner, Precinct 15. There's nobody here who wants to see eagles or the food chain of those animals die. But what I think has been missing in the proponent's presentation, and I hope someone will speak to it, perhaps I can ask Mr. Moderator if anybody in public health here on the town side could speak to it. Is there an alternative for property owners, for schools, for public buildings, in the situations where the public health, children, et cetera, are at risk? I speak to particularly the high school project, unearthed a whole bunch of rat problems in that area. So I would ask, Mr. Moderator, is there anybody here who can talk about the viability of alternatives?
Yeah, I don't know. We probably don't have anyone from the health department, but Mr. Feeney, do you want to address that? Well, I think it's relevant for folks to know the alternatives that they have, if the rodenticides are ultimately banned. Mr. Feeney?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jim Feeney, Town Manager. One thing I can report is that we've seen no adverse impact from the implementation of our policy to disallow the use of escars on town property. In instances where we have needed to control rodents and have been effective in doing so, you can use first-generation anticoagulant rodenticides and or snap traps, or we oftentimes will, at night and on weekends in town buildings, do what we call mass trapping events, where you sort of litter all passageways that rodents may use with glue boards or something of that sort. So there are instances where you would not use poison, and we've been effective in doing so.
Thank you. Hearing that makes me feel much more comfortable that for public health, this is something that also is supported by your vote yes, and I'll be voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Mr. Cunningham, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Cunningham, Town Council. Nothing in response to Mr. Wagner's comments. However, just for the sake of completeness to the prior question raised by Mr. Jameson, there is a section for enforcement contained in the bylaw that was passed by this body in 2022. It talks about fines and other issues, and potentially, if the home rule legislation were to be passed by the state legislature, the municipal law unit of the Attorney General's office could take our bylaw amendment evaluation off of pause and allow us to enact that. So I would refer anyone who's interested in the enforcement provisions and potential in the bylaw to look back at the vote that was taken in 2022.
I see. So that would still be in play if this motion tonight passes?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, and thanks for the opportunity to clarify.
Great, thank you. Nancy Bloom and then Larry Slotnick. We are approaching the 11 o'clock hour a little bit. Do we have a pass from Ms. Bloom, I think? Okay. Larry Slotnick and then Pi Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Larry Slotnick, Precinct 7. I just wanted to touch on something that folks might be thinking about. Just some background, I'm the facility manager at FoodLink. Being a food business, we established that property on Summer Street in 2021. We hired a pest control company. It wasn't me who did that, but we didn't really ask them what they were going to be baiting those traps with, which were typically for mice indoors and larger rodents outdoors. About a year and a half later, we instructed them to change the bait in the traps to really not be any sort of rodent side, but to just give the technician who would visit us every 3 months the ability to open the trap and see if there was any activity with the bait, the non-lethal bait that was inside those traps. And that's been totally adequate for our needs. Luckily, we really don't have any issues inside or outside the building. I guess I'll just opine on the idea that I think a lot of business owners in town automatically put rat traps out in their parking lots, around apartment buildings, rat bait stations, without really considering the full impact of whatever they put in there, without first determining if there's any activity around their building. So I'm voting in favor of this, and I just wanted to educate folks that this will not really hurt the business of pest control companies because where they're needed, these bait stations will still be used and will be observed by a technician on a periodic basis without necessarily having any rodent inside them. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll take Pi Fisher and then Robin Bergman.
Pi Fisher, Precinct 6. I move the question.
Okay, we have a motion to terminate debate. Do we have a second? Okay, so I'll take a voice vote, 2/3 vote. All those in favor of terminating debate on all matters under Article 17 say yes. Yes. All those opposed say no. Debate is terminated. So we will move now to a vote on the main motion. And as we're bringing up that voting screen, the main motion would authorize the Select Board to refile home rule legislation to allow the town to regulate through local bylaw or Board of Health regulation or ordinance the use of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides within the town, including prohibiting the use of such pesticides by licensed commercial applicators. So if you're in favor of authorizing the Select Board to do that, to refile that home rule legislation, press 1 for yes. Well, let's leave voting open a little bit longer since that was so long. If you wish to not authorize the Select Board to refile that home rule legislation, press 2 for no, or 3 to abstain. We'll give just maybe 5 more seconds. Okay, let's close voting. And the motion passes, 198 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative, 3 abstentions. It's 10:53, and that brings us to Article 18, which has a couple of motions under it, so this might be a good time to move to adjourn. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Before I take that vote, remember to return your handsets. Please do not walk off with them. Please put them in the bins or hand them to somebody on the way out. Okay. All those in favor of adjourning, say yes. Yes. All those opposed, say no. We are adjourned till Monday. Thank you.